Something major is happening in Europe. Countries that formerly welcomed millions of migrants are now changing their minds fast. In 2025, deportations are skyrocketing, borders are tightening, and immigration laws are harder than ever. But why is it about safety, economy, or political pressure? And which countries are leading this enormous crackdown? Today, we're counting down 10 European states sending immigrants back in record numbers. And trust me, some of these policies will shock you. Do you think this is necessary or unfair? Let's dive into the figures, the reasoning, and the real impact of Europe's immigration shakeup. Number 10. Latvia. Latvia might be small, barely 1.8 million people, roughly the population of Phoenix, Arizona. But when it comes to immigration, this Baltic nation is punching much above its weight in 2025. If you look at a map, Latvia shares a 214 km border with Belarus and a 292 km border with Russia, two countries that have been accused of weaponizing migration, basically pushing migrants toward EU borders to create chaos. To fight back, Latvia has ramped up deportations by a whopping 45% compared to 2024. Last year, about 2,100 undocumented immigrants were deported, but in 2025 that number is expected to exceed 3,000. The government has also poured €200 million, $215 million, into border security, installing advanced thermal imaging cameras, motion sensors, and drones to prevent illegal crossings. And get this, Latvia is one of the first European countries to legalize pushbacks at the border. This means if migrants arrive illegally, they're immediately turned around and sent back to Belarus or Russia, no questions asked. Critics say this breaches international asylum regulations, but Latvia argues that it's necessary to defend national security. Another major shift, Latvia is tightening its residency laws. Before, immigrants could apply for permanent residency after 5 years, but now the criteria is 10 years, and applicants must pass a Latvian language exam. This has caused a mass exodus of the Russian-speaking population, with over 20,000 individuals departing Latvia since 2024 because they can't match the new requirements. Therefore, is Latvia becoming a fortress? Maybe. But the government says these restrictions are vital to keep the country stable at an era of rising geopolitical tensions. Whether you agree or not, one thing's for sure, Latvia is making some big moves in 2025. Number 9. Greece. Greece, the land of ancient history, gorgeous islands, and one of Europe's worst migratory problems. Yep, since 2015, Greece has been a main entry point for migrants, especially those coming from Syria, Afghanistan, and Africa via Turkey. By 2020, the country had received over 1.2 million migrants, more than 10% of its population. But in 2025, the Greek government is saying enough. New policies are slashing asylum approvals by 60%, and rejected applicants are being deported faster than ever. In 2024, about 15,000 migrants were deported. This year, that number is expected to jump to 25,000. One of the most controversial measures, asylum applicants can now be detained for up to 36 months while their case is reviewed, triple the previous limit. This is supposed to dissuade people from coming in the first place. Also, Greece has beefed up border patrols in the Aegean Sea, employing Coast Guard boats, thermal drones, and even AI-powered surveillance to detect unauthorized crossings. The government has also struck a huge deal with Turkey, pledging to return at least 10,000 migrants each year under a new €1.5 billion, $1.6 billion, border pact. But here's the catch, Turkey is demanding that the EU increase financial help in return for taking back the migrants. And if that wasn't enough, Greece is fast-tracking deportation planes. The government recently negotiated deals with 15 African countries to return migrants directly to their home nations, cutting out the tedious EU bureaucracy. While human rights groups are furious, many Greek voters support the measures. In a 2025 poll, 72% of Greeks said they desired stronger immigration laws, especially after a spate of high-profile incidents involving undocumented migrants. Greece, once the symbol of European hospitality, is now one of the harshest countries on immigration. Number 8. Austria. Austria might not be the first country you think of when it comes to migration crackdowns, but this land of alpine peaks and classical music is now one of Europe's strictest enforcers. Why? Well, Austria is right in the middle of Europe's migrant corridor. It borders 8 countries, making it a key transit route for migrants heading north. Since 2015, Austria has received over 500,000 asylum applications, a huge number for a country with only 9 million people. And by 2024, the public was fed up. So what's Austria doing in 2025? First, they've cut asylum approvals by 70%. That means if you apply, the chances of getting approved are lower than ever. Secondly, Austria is prioritizing deportations, aiming to remove 40,000 undocumented immigrants this year alone. And here's the wild part. Austria is supporting an EU plan to build deportation sites outside of Europe. The idea, instead of housing migrants in Austria, they'll be sent to processing centers in North Africa while their asylum cases are reviewed. This plan is still in development, but if it happens, Austria will be at the forefront. The Austrian government is also blocking citizenship applications for migrants who have received any form of government assistance in the past 5 years. This means even if someone has legally worked in Austria, they could still be denied a passport if they've ever received welfare or unemployment benefits. And get this, Austria's newest border plan involves high-tech surveillance towers along the Slovakian and Hungarian borders. These 5 meters tall towers come with AI-driven facial recognition that scans people entering the nation. Supporters argue that these rules would protect Austria's economy and social services, but detractors believe they're establishing a two-tier society where immigrants are treated as second-class citizens. One thing's certain, Austria is done playing nice when it comes to illegal migration. Number 7. Denmark. Denmark is a country known for Vikings and the happiest people on earth, right? Well, here's something you probably didn't expect. Denmark is also one of the strictest countries on immigration in Europe. For years, Denmark has been quietly implementing a radical immigration policy that's now making headlines worldwide in 2025. The Danish government is not just deporting illegal immigrants, they're outsourcing the entire asylum procedure to Africa. Yes, you heard that right. Denmark has signed a $250 million, $270 million deal with Rwanda to relocate asylum seekers there while their applications are processed. Why? Well, the government argues that this will deter illegal migration by making Denmark a less attractive destination. They say it's more humane because migrants won't have to risk their lives crossing the Mediterranean. But critics call it deportation by outsourcing. And that's not all. Denmark has also introduced a zero asylum policy, meaning they will accept almost no new refugees unless under exceptional circumstances. In 2024, Denmark approved only 800 asylum applications, the lowest number in the EU. Compare that to Sweden, which approved 20,000, and you'll see how extreme Denmark has become. In 2025, the Danish government is doubling down on deportations, with a target of 10,000 removals by the end of the year. They're even revoking residency permits from Syrians and Afghans who have lived in Denmark for years, arguing that their home countries are now safe enough for return. This decision has triggered mass protests, yet the government remains firm. Another controversial law, immigrants from non-Western backgrounds must now live in integration zones, specific neighborhoods where they must attend Danish cultural and language classes before being permitted to roam freely. Failure to comply, deportation. Denmark's harsh position has made it one of the most extreme situations in Europe. And yet, a whopping 76% of Danish voters favor these policies. The country is displaying that even in one of the happiest places on earth, immigration laws can be ruthlessly severe. Number 6. Italy. Italy has been coping with a migration dilemma for decades, and in 2025 they've come up with one of the wildest solutions yet: sending migrants to Albania. Yes, you heard that right. So here's the deal. Italy and Albania have signed a €1.5 billion, $1.6 billion, agreement that allows Italy to send 36,000 migrants per year to Albanian processing centers while their asylum claims are reviewed. This move is designed to take pressure off Italy's overcrowded immigration system, where over 180,000 migrants arrived by sea in 2024 alone, a 60% increase from 2023. The Italian government, led by Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, has also introduced rapid deportation laws aimed at removing at least 40,000 undocumented migrants in 2025. This is a huge change from previous governments, which struggled to deport even 20,000 per year. And guess what? Italy is now seizing migrant boats at record rates. The Italian Coast Guard has confiscated almost 1,200 boats used by smugglers in the first half of 20,125 alone. The message: if you arrive illegally, you're not staying. Another big shift is Italy's crackdown on humanitarian NGOs. These organizations, which rescue migrants at sea, are now facing heavy fines and even jail time for bringing migrants to Italian shores. The government claims this policy is necessary to break the smuggling networks, but human rights activists say it's putting lives at risk. Despite all this, Italy is still struggling to control migration, especially from Tunisia and Libya, where smugglers are finding new ways to send migrants across the Mediterranean. Can Italy's new strategy really stop illegal migration? Only time will tell. Number 5. Poland. Poland is taking no chances in 2025 when it comes to immigration. This country, famous for its pierogies and medieval castles, has now become one of the toughest anti-immigration nations in Europe. So what's changed? First off, Poland has completely sealed its 400 kilometers border with Belarus, building a €350 million, $380 million, high-tech border wall equipped with motion detectors, drones, and AI surveillance systems. This was done to stop the so-called hybrid war, where Belarus was accused of pushing thousands of migrants into Poland to create political instability. And it's working. In 2024, over 50,000 migrants tried to cross illegally. In 2025, that number has dropped by 80% thanks to the border wall and strict deportation laws. Poland has also approved a new emergency law allowing border guards to immediately deport anyone caught crossing illegally. No asylum claim, no appeal, no nothing. If you're caught, you're thrown back the same day. And here's another stunning figure. Poland has initiated major deportation flights, transporting at least 5,000 migrants per month to their native nations. The government is spending €500 million, $540 million, this year alone on charter deportation flights to Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia. Polish citizens overwhelmingly favor these policies. In a 2025 poll, 82% indicated they desired even stricter immigration controls. The government argues that Poland must protect its culture, economy, and security from uncontrolled migration, but critics say Poland's stance is too extreme, pointing out that even refugees from war-torn countries like Syria and Sudan are being denied entry. The EU has warned Poland that it may be violating international asylum laws, but Poland's response: "We don't care, our country, our rules." Poland has issued a clear message to the globe in 2025. If you're an illegal immigrant, you're not staying. Number 4. Finland. Finland, the land of saunas, northern lights, and some of the happiest people on earth, has taken a hard turn when it comes to immigration. You might think of Finland as a welcoming and peaceful country, but in 2025 it has become one of Europe's strictest nations for migrants. So what's happening? Well, Finland's government has set a new record by deporting over 10,000 migrants in just 1 year. That's double the number of deportations compared to 2023, and the country is only getting stricter. The government has introduced express deportations, meaning if you enter Finland illegally, you can be sent back within 48 hours. No asylum application, no long legal process. And the biggest change, Finland has officially shut its eastern border with Russia completely. This move occurred after the Finnish government accused Russia of sending thousands of migrants across the border in an attempt to destabilize the country. To stop this, Finland has built a 200 kilometers border fence costing €400 million, $435 million, replete with drones, infrared cameras, and motion sensors. But Finland isn't just stopping new migrants, it's also kicking out those who are already there. The government has revoked over 5,000 residence permits from asylum seekers, stating that their home countries, such as Afghanistan, Iraq, and Somalia, are now safe to return to. This decision has generated large protests, but the Finnish government isn't backing down. And here's another twist. Finland is now targeting criminal migrants more aggressively than ever. If you are convicted of a crime, even a minor one, your chances of deportation increase by 300%. In 2024 alone, Finland deported over 1,500 foreign criminals, including gang members and drug dealers. Surprisingly, a majority of Finns support these policies. In a 2025 survey, 68% of Finnish citizens said they wanted even stricter immigration laws, arguing that Finland's welfare system should be for Finns first. So is Finland becoming a closed-off nation, or is it just protecting itself? Either way, one thing is clear: Finland in 2025 is not the same Finland from a decade ago. Number 3. Sweden. Sweden used to be one of the most welcoming countries for immigrants, but in 2025 that's entirely changed. In fact, Sweden has fully reversed its immigration policies and is now deporting migrants at record levels. Let's rewind a bit. After taking in over 1.2 million refugees between 2015 and 2023, Sweden started battling with crime, gang violence, and social tensions. In reaction, the new government has launched Operation Clean Sweden, a massive campaign aimed at deporting at least 50,000 undocumented migrants by the end of 2025. And how are they doing this? First, Sweden has cut social benefits for undocumented migrants. No more free housing, free healthcare, or welfare if you don't have legal status. This has forced thousands of migrants to leave voluntarily, as they can no longer afford to stay in Sweden. Second, the Swedish government is fast-tracking deportations like never before. Immigration courts now process asylum cases in half the time, meaning rejected applicants must leave within 30 days or risk being forcibly removed. Already, over 25,000 migrants have been expelled under this new system. But the biggest shocker, Sweden is now deporting entire families, even if some members were born in Sweden. The government argues that if the parents are undocumented, the children must leave too. This has led to huge protests, but the government says it's necessary to restore law and order. And let's talk about crime, because this has been the biggest reason for Sweden's immigration crackdown. In 2024 alone, Sweden experienced 1,300 shootings, many tied to gang violence in immigrant-dominated regions. The Swedish Prime Minister has vowed that Sweden would no longer accept criminal migrants, and anyone convicted of any crime, no matter how little, will be deported immediately. Another surprising fact: Sweden is now sending deportation officials into schools to locate undocumented children. This has caused global outrage, but the administration insists it's necessary to follow the law. Despite the controversy, Swedish voters are on board. A 2025 poll found that 72% of Swedes support these harsh immigration measures, saying they want Sweden to be safe again. So from Europe's most open border country to one of its most stringent, Sweden's metamorphosis has been nothing short of stunning. Number 2. Germany. If you had told someone in 2015 that Germany, Europe's economic powerhouse and one of the most immigrant-friendly countries, would be mass deporting migrants by 2025, they would have laughed. But that's exactly what's happening now. Germany, formerly famous for its welcoming culture, is now taking a harsh attitude on immigration, and the numbers are startling. In 2025 alone, Germany has deported over 60,000 migrants, the largest amount since World War II. This marks a 50% increase compared to 2023. So what changed? Germany's migration crisis has reached a breaking point. After accepting more than 2 million refugees since 2015, the country is struggling with housing shortages, rising crime, and economic pressure. The expense of supporting asylum seekers has risen to 50 billion, 54 billion every year, and taxpayers are fed up. A 2025 survey indicated that 74% of Germans believe the country has too many migrants and support stricter deportation policies. One of Germany's most controversial policies is the fast-track deportation statute, which permits authorities to remove unsuccessful asylum seekers in just 14 days instead of the customary month-long process. This has made it easier for Germany to send back tens of thousands of migrants, especially those from Afghanistan, Syria, and North Africa. But it doesn't stop there. Germany has also cut benefits for asylum seekers, reducing housing and financial aid to encourage voluntary return. This policy has already led over 20,000 migrants to leave on their own in 2025 alone. Now let's talk about crime, because this has been a significant driving reason behind Germany's immigration crackdown in recent years. German cities have seen a sharp rise in gang violence, theft, and drug trafficking, with many incidents linked to migrant communities. The government has now prioritized deporting foreign criminals, expelling over 10,000 people with criminal records in just the first 6 months of 2025. But perhaps the most shocking move is Germany's deportation raids. Every week, police sweep through refugee shelters, train stations, and even schools to find and remove undocumented migrants. Footage of these raids has gone viral, prompting large demonstrations, yet the government believes it's necessary with these extreme measures. Germany has fully overhauled its immigration policy, and it's just getting stricter. Number 1. France. France, which has adopted the most harsh approach to deporting immigrants in 20,125, the stats are mind-blowing. France has evicted over 100,000 people in just 1 year. That's roughly double the amount of deportations compared to 2023. France's immigration dilemma has been mounting for years, with over 7 million immigrants living in the country, about 10% of the population. France has struggled with rising crime, rioting, and social tensions. The administration decided it was time for a full reset, and that meant mass deportations. One of the most controversial programs is the zero-tolerance deportation program. This means that any undocumented migrant, failed asylum seeker, or criminal is removed immediately. There are no second chances. If you're caught without legal papers, you're placed on a plane the same week. And it's not just undocumented migrants. France has also started deporting people with legal residency if they are considered a threat to public order. This has led to thousands of people, including longtime residents, being forced to leave. But what really shocked the world was France's expulsion of entire migrant communities in 2025. Police dismantled over 50 migrant camps in cities like Paris, Marseille, and Calais. Families were put on buses and sent back to their home countries. Some of these communities had been in France for years, but the government says France must be for the French first. And then there's the crime crackdown. After a record-breaking year of violent protests in 2024, the French government passed emergency laws that allow for mass arrests and deportations of suspected criminals. In just the first 6 months of 2025, France deported over 15,000 foreign criminals, including gang members, drug dealers, and even people suspected of radical extremism. One of the biggest turning points came after a series of terrorist attacks in 2024. The French president vowed that France will not tolerate those who do not share our values. This led to the deportation of thousands of radicalized individuals, many of whom were born in France but held dual citizenship. And let's not forget the new border policies. France has now shut down asylum applications from certain countries, including Algeria, Morocco, and Afghanistan. This means that if you arrive in France from one of these places, you won't even be considered for asylum. You're sent back immediately. Despite all the controversy, the majority of French citizens support these actions. A 2025 poll found that 78% of French people felt the country's immigration policies were too mild in the past and needed to be toughened up. With France taking the most harsh posture in Europe, it's evident that the continent is undergoing a tremendous transformation, and it looks like there's no looking back.